When should you replace your motorcycle tires? This one's kind of important, I would say. The first sign that you obviously want to replace your tires is if they're damaged, cracked, or there's any type of visible deformity in it. A tire that doesn't look right is a tire that's probably not right. If you spin it and it kind of wobbles or has damage on it, it's dry rotting, obviously you probably want to replace the tire. The other thing I would like to point out right now too is on a motorcycle you only have 2 tires. So if it is damaged, just keep in mind that if you lose that tire, it could be incredibly dangerous. This is also why a lot of shops, including the one I work at, won't plug tires because you only have 2 of them. Sometimes people run plugs to the end of the lifespan of the tire, but you are gambling a little bit, and I never recommend doing that on the front if you're going to do that. Sometimes when you lose a rear tire, you can recover from it, but if you lose a front tire, it's typically going to be a really, really bad day. The other thing is if the tire feels suddenly off, so it was performing one way one day and then the next it seems like it felt different, that could be internal construction coming apart. Tires aren't always damaged on the outside, there are plies laid inside, and sometimes those can get damaged from age, wear, or abuse. The other thing that you might want to check to see if you need to replace your tires is the date stamp, the little code on the side of the tire. So if you look at any tire, street, dirt, any tire, it's going to have a 4-number code on the side, and what that's going to represent is the week and the year that it was manufactured. So in this case, this one says 3624. What that means is it was manufactured the 36th week in 2024. So this tire is a couple years old, but it's pretty rare that you're going to end up getting one that's been manufactured less than a year anyway. Takes time for them to go from the factory through shipping to the ports and all that. So 2 years, I will happily put this on with no worries. Now the other thing is, depending on where the tire is stored, if it's stored outside, whether it's in the direct sunlight or not, stored in a dry, cool environment, stored in a garage, basement, all these things matter too. If it's stored out of sunlight, I typically worry about aging a bit less than if it's in direct sunlight all the time. A tire that has been sitting outside, maybe under a bike cover even, it's still being exposed to drastic temperature changes. Typically won't use a tire that's older than about 5 to 6 years in that case. If it's garage kept, it hasn't been used much, I'll use tires that go up to 10 years, but that's not typical. Most tires see a lot of abuse and they don't last that long, so I don't recommend doing that. That's going to be a rare case. Typically after 5 to 7 years, you want to replace that tire, and it's usually going to be closer to that 5 mark. You'll start seeing it dry out, and you'll probably notice a decrease in performance by that point. And if you have no idea when it was mounted or how old the tire is, I just recommend replacing it because again, you have 2, and if you lose one, it could be incredibly dangerous. The other thing to look for is the wear bar. So this one is a DOT knobby, and you can probably see the wear bar right here. So you really have to wear this thing down to get all the way there. You'll probably replace a tire like this long before you get to that wear bar. But if that wear bar ends up being flush with the tire, that means that tire is at the end of its useful lifespan. It is time to replace it. If your tire is showing cords, then it is definitely time to replace it. Please do not ride on a tire that is showing cords. That is probably one of the worst things you can do. That is asking for an accident to happen. A couple things you might want to consider when you're getting new tires is weight ratings. You want a tire that's going to be rated properly for your motorcycle. I have met a lot of people who have said even shops have put on like D404s on big Harleys, and that is a low weight rated tire. You put that on an 800-pound bike, then you're going to have a problem. It's going to wear out really quickly at best. It could completely blow up at worst. So make sure you check the weight rating and the speed ratings. I will leave a link to the charts on Shinko's website. That's actually a really good resource. Shinko has a great chart to make sure that your weight rating matches the bike that you're putting on it. Now it is split between the front and the back, but the back needs to hold the majority of the weight, so it's going to be a little bit skewed toward the back. Definitely want to check that rating. On the other side of things, we have a lightweight dual sport kind of like mine. you might not want to go with a really high weight rated tire because it's going to be stiff and it's going to not perform quite as well. One other thing to consider is if you're doing the labor yourself or not. So if you're changing your tires, then your only cost is really going to be just the tire, right? But if you are having shops do it, one thing you might want to consider is the labor cost. So if you get a higher end tire with a high silica compound, for example, like a Road 5, that is a long lasting tire, then you might be saving money in the long run, even though it's a more expensive tire, because it's going to save you costs in labor versus changing out a cheaper tire that's going to wear out quicker. The other benefit you're going to get out of that is you're going to get a nicer tire to run year round. So not only will you get a better ride, but it'll last longer. However, I don't recommend maxing out your budget because it is always possible that you could run over a nail on your way home and your new tire is ruined. I've seen that happen before. It sucks, but it is a possibility. So just try to be reasonable about it. Get the best tire you can afford, but not so much that you don't have a little bit of backup funds in case something happens to it, because even though it sucks even more if you have no way to replace it again. So yeah, that's what I recommend. Check your date stamps. If your tires have any damage, replace them. Also, if you haven't been good about checking your pressure, that can also wreak havoc on tires over time, running them at too low of a PSI. So if you haven't been good about that, you might want to consider replacing them prematurely. But if anything feels off, anything looks off, you typically just want to replace that tire. It's not worth risking it on a bike. And tires don't cost more than most of the medical bills that you might get if you do wreck your motorcycle. So that's all I got for today. If you like this content, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the like button. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.